Mary, Mary, quite contrary, how does your garden grow? In 2020, it could very well be, how does your business grow? And can you even survive? Hi, I'm Andrea Oliver, and on this edition of Lakeland Now in View, we're going to be talking business and what, if any, magic formula there might be that causes them to succeed. And so we're back at the beautiful Bella Visage Spa. I am so excited to have Wesley Barnett sitting in on this show. And Wesley, a native of Lakeland, went on to graduate from Wake Forest University, UCLA, Anderson, a man who's an astute businessman, started a lot of startup investments and real estate developments. And you know, Wesley, they say if you want to find somebody who's doing something and doing it well, then you go to somebody who's a success at it and you take notes. And so I wanted just to find out, I know it's probably a little facetious to say that it's a magic formula that causes businesses to succeed, but really, is there or are there some things that must be in place for businesses to do well?
Well, if you can measure someone's success by the amount of failures they've had, then you can say I'm quite successful, because as many businesses as I have that are doing well, I've had many that have gone under and have not thrived before or during COVID. So there's a lot of things that you can learn from failure. And I think that that's an important thing to remember is don't let failure get you down. Build on that in your next endeavor. There's a lot of people out there doing great work, getting through this COVID situation. There's a lot of people that are struggling, and we've been trying to help those businesses in town that are struggling to kind of do a little bit better. And then again, there are a lot of industries that are thriving, and I believe it's the onus of those companies and those people to help their fellow man in this time where there are some winners and there are some losers.
How much of it is mindset? The ability to thrive, the ability to do well, even in challenging times. How much of it is mindset as opposed to just knowing the goods, having the goods, producing the goods?
Well, I think you have to have the right mindset. You have to be prepared to succeed, but then you have to have a lot of luck at the same time. So a lot of things have to go your way, and a lot of times we mistake the companies that survive for being the best, but in a lot of cases they were just simply the luckiest. That's not to say you don't have to be prepared and do all the right things and be smart in your business, but it takes not only diligence, but also a little bit of fortuitousness and serendipity.
When you talk about being smart in business, what exactly are we looking at? And is it a pretty set across the board for most every business, the idea of being smart, or does it vary from one business to the next?
Well, I like to say when I went to grad school to get my MBA, they were teaching me how to be an employee at a large business. And that's a totally different intelligence aptitude from what a lot of small businesses that become large businesses, how they were founded is a lot of times on that grit and that just innate ability that is not necessarily taught at schools and taught in universities and business schools, but it comes through hard work and learning on the job and just being very diligent about what you're doing.
A few weeks ago, we talked with a guest and the focus was leadership. And the question I posed was, is this something that is innate, or are we taught to be leaders? I guess the question could very well be the same I'd ask when it comes to business. Do you just get up and you're like, I have an idea to run a business, and so I'm a businessman? Or can you be trained to be an effective business person?
I do believe that leadership is mostly an innate trait. Obviously, there's things that you learn along the way and things that you're born with, but with leadership, you can tell when people are leaders. They're leaders from an early age, and they're leaders without any formal training. For instance, my grandfather was he knew he wanted to lead people. He wanted to put his employees first, and it's not something that I just believe he was born with that kind of sense. And even myself, I'm not the kind of people person that he was. I wouldn't be able to manage by walking around thousands of people and know their names and all of that. So there are some people that have that skill and there are other people that don't. So in my businesses, the way that I handle that shortcoming in myself is to hire managers that have those traits and can do that, because not everybody has that ability.
How important is it then would you say for a leader, a business exec, to make sure that she is surrounded with the right team?
I think that's one of the best things you can do in business is see where your shortcomings are as a leader or as the boss or the owner, and fill those gaps with other people who have those talents, have those skills where you're lacking. One of the worst things you can do is think that you can do everything yourself and not see any shortcomings, or relatedly, just not be able to delegate. And even if you can do some things, you can't do everything if you're running a business, especially one that you want to grow and to become scalable and successful. One of the things we've noticed in COVID is that the big are getting bigger and the small are struggling the worst. So I think everybody knows they kind of need to grow to succeed. In fact, my grandfather with Publix, he knew that when he expanded from Winter Haven to Lakeland, he took on a big risk to buy a distribution company that had some stores to grow his chain from 2 stores to 20 stores. Took on a lot of debt to do it, but he knew that to succeed in business, you kind of have to grow.
You talk about your grandfather, and we know that you are the proud legacy of a business that continues to thrive and continues to do well today. He most definitely made an impact on you and your business successes. Other people that you would look to, that you say, I gathered this from this one, that from that one, but I have formed who I am by leaning into my own skill set.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've worked for quite a few people that have informed me on things that are good to do. I've learned some things, I don't want to do things like that. I worked for a software company in town after graduating from Wake Forest and got a crash course in all things small business. Learned a lot from my manager there, my boss there, that taught me a lot about the charismatic people interaction and salesmanship. And then learned through that as well, the need to, like I said, fill in those gaps of management and learning that, a lot of people say human relations is the hardest part of a business because humans are the most uncontrollable and challenging. And that is, in my experience, that is the case. It's really the lifeblood of a company is its human resources, its human capital. And managing that is the toughest, and then if you get it right, the most rewarding.
You talked about failing in several of your business ventures, and obviously you failed forward, which is something that is taught now, in a lot of business schools and business sense. Yes, there might be failures, but make sure you're failing forward. What were the biggest lessons you took away from some of your failures?
The biggest lessons is I always did a lot of things to diversify what I was doing. I had a lot of irons in the fire, which I believe can be good and bad. It can distract you, but it can also let you learn a lot. So I was doing a lot of businesses in various industries, some of which, like I said, have gone by the wayside, some of which are thriving and doing quite well. And really, it's just to learn to not give up, not to let your last failure put you back. It's like they say about quarterbacks in the NFL, you throw an interception, you got to go right back out there and forget it ever happened. So it's things of that nature that I've learned. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say, a lot of my successes come from starting at a very high pedestal with a high perch, having the resources to really do a lot of things. So I really don't want to take credit for anything at this point, because everything I've done has kind of had a great foundation to start from. So for instance, we just opened a hotel at the Spring Hill Suites by Marriott at the RP Funding Center. We have a great manager.
In a year of COVID.
In the year of COVID, we have a great manager there named John Lout, and he has taken this challenge and really done the best with it. I believe we're at about 50% occupancy right now, which all the hotels around here are. So it's really just a testament to the longstanding vibrancy of our community. People are still coming here. They're still traveling here. The business travel's down, but the leisure travel has maintained and is keeping us afloat.
We heard a report not too long ago, and as I compiled and looked to put this program together, I wanted to just see what people were saying business-wise. And there's great optimism, and you would think, wow, in a year of COVID, people are being optimistic, but there's great optimism about what happens in the future. And so I guess that looking to you as a business leader, as somebody who's an astute businessman, I guess the question I would pose to you is, are you telling, if you were to talk to business people now, are you telling them to hold steady? Are you telling them to step back? Are you telling them to be futuristic in their thought?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I'm not the first person to say this, but the trends that we've been seeing in our economy, COVID has pushed them forward, by a decade. So we're kind of fast forwarding things that were going to happen anyway 10 years from now are happening this year. And there's also an old saying that a lot of the greatest companies were formed in down periods. The Great Depression, Publix was formed in 1930. So there a lot of greatness rises from the ashes, so to speak, of depressions and economic downturns. So the problem is you don't really know what that's going to be until it happens. So, the visionaries of tomorrow are the crazy people of today. So you just have to, try to do the best you can do, try to think towards the future, what the trends are going to be, what the people are going to want in their lives. A lot of things will change, a lot of things won't change. And you just need to basically fast forward what you were doing. And anybody that was already kind of chasing some of those trends or the ones that are doing better off, the digital and the things like that, and people that didn't, were holding on to the old way, were swept away faster than they would have otherwise been.
We hear a lot about the new normal. You talk to anybody in today's, business sense, and you're hearing, well, this is the new normal. For restaurants, many of them are finding out that their takeout business is the big part of what they're doing right now. And so we're looking at not maybe changing, but sort of reinventing. Is that going to be, as we move forward for businesses, are they going to have to find a way to reinvent themselves and how they do things?
I think, again, you're always changing, looking towards the future. But, I really do hope this is kind of a blip. And, we do need more PPP. We need more aid for these small businesses that we don't want to see go by the wayside. We don't want to only have McDonald's and Burger Kings to go eat at. So I think they did a great job providing some of that government assistance. Hopefully they give a little bit more because it's prolonged longer than I believe a lot of restaurants were prepared for. Although it was a great Band-Aid when they got it earlier on. And we need, I think, one more Band-Aid before this will all be said and done. Because I don't think that everybody getting takeout is a long-term trend. I think people want to be in social settings, in restaurants, as long as it's safe and healthy to do so.
I know that you get an opportunity to share your expertise, share your skills with a lot of up-and-coming entrepreneurs and business people. For the young person, or young at heart person thinking about starting a business, maybe this year, in the next few years, what are some of the key things that you would share that you say it has to be looked at and is a must to incorporate in how they function?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing you need to determine if you're trying to create a business that's a job for yourself, or if you're trying to create a business that's going to grow and become something bigger. And both are perfectly good things to have. It's just if you're creating a business that's going to be a job for yourself, you need to worry about profitability early on. Getting your name out there, not trying to expand too fast before you really have your feet on the ground. And if you're building a business that's built to grow, then you really need to focus on the business plan, getting investors, because you're going to need that capital. And then it's, why should people invest in what you're doing? Because there's so many people competing for investment, and it's so hard to find investment that you really need to have a good value proposition and build a case for yourself. And that's luckily we're seeing the Lakeland community kind of get behind both sets of these businesses, but with Catapult and things of that nature going on, creating an ecosystem for startups as well as kind of smaller lifestyle businesses.
One of the projects that I know you're excited to be involved with is the new Bonnet Springs Park, and you've lent yourself to a lot of philanthropic business leads in this community. Tell us about that and your involvement there.
Yeah, well, the great thing about philanthropic projects is you don't have to worry about being good at business. You just have to be really good at writing checks. So That's actually a lot easier. We talk about that a lot longer. But no, Bonnet Springs is a really great project for our city. I think a lot of people do know about it, but I don't think anybody can even comprehend what kind of change it's going to make for the downtown area and the central Lakeland area. Even the people involved with it, every day we get more and more amazed by just how incredible it's becoming. But it really is kind of the project. It's a legacy project for our family for sure. It was one of the last projects that my mother had a hand in before she succumbed to Alzheimer's, and she can't really be involved as much as she was before. But she was involved at the outset and was really behind it and saw the power of it. So in that sense, it really is a legacy for her and for my entire family.
Wesley Barnett, such a joy to have you on this program. I can't imagine that you have much downtime, but in your downtime with your wife, your beautiful wife, and your two beautiful daughters, what might we find you doing?
Usually hanging out in basements, talking to people on LkldNow. This is downtime because I don't have the kids running around. But no, we're usually, we try to travel, which has been a little bit more difficult. But really just dialing down into that family life because we have two kids now and they take a lot of our time up. But it's a great thing to have.
And it's great to have you here. Thank you so much for coming and sharing your time with us and your expertise. And of course, you can look forward to another great conversation when we meet again. So excited to have brought Wesley Barnett and his expertise to our program, and hope you'll join us again when we meet. I'm Andrea Oliver. This is Lakeland Now in View.